Good evening. My name is James Boswell, and I did a research paper on nonprofit organizations, and I found that the best way to pursue this research was through nonprofits, how many that exist, and how they operate, and their fundraising, and some dilemmas that they've come across. There's some interesting numbers that come with nonprofit organization. The fact that over 100,000 nonprofits operate in Texas as of 2013. Of those nonprofits here in Texas, there's a 3.8% in the Texas workforce that are employed by nonprofit. That makes for an average of 29 nonprofits to every 10,000 people in Texas. Human service organizations account for 23.77% of the sector and have the largest growth at 6.2% annually. That's a pretty large growth rate, considering especially if you compare it to other workforces across the state. Now, human service organizations include the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and United Way and those sorts of organizations. And so those account for nearly a quarter of the sector of nonprofits. What's interesting is during the recession that the sector still reported a 0.52% increase in revenues and nearly a 10% increase in assets. Now, there's also shown that average nonprofits have seen little to no revenue growth over those same periods. Now, the overall nonprofit sector in Texas has grown at an annual rate of 2.4%, and for the last 17 years, that's an over 4% annual growth rate. In 2010, nonprofit sector hit the peak across all types of organizations, with 162,352 registered organizations. That's 501c3 registration through the IRS. Now, as that's been reported, altogether they have assets of $147 billion with a revenue stream of $66 billion and their expenses of $62 billion. When you're looking at just that, you're looking at a profit of $4 billion. Now, as you will see, only the top 1% of nonprofit organizations make up the majority of those funds for the state of Texas. So, the problem that I ran into through this research was seeing exactly what the non-1% were actually making and how badly they were hurting. Now, I do know that nationwide, the Boy Scouts of America councils, there are 75% of those in some type of financial trouble. And when we quote the financial trouble of 75%, that means they have less than 6 months rainy day fund in their accounts. Also, there are 60% of nonprofits in Texas that do not even have a 6-month reserve and are one financial dilemma away from bankruptcy. If you're not a registered 501c3 organization, you lose a lot of backing and that sort of thing, and it allows for lawsuits to really come across. So you have to be very, very careful, and a lot of these nonprofits can't even afford to have the proper insurance and stuff like that to prevent anything to help safeguard themselves against any type of dilemma or lawsuit or that sort of thing. So what does this all mean? Nonprofit organizations are facing some major fundraising dilemmas that are impacting the mission they're trying to fulfill. All these nonprofits, I would say 98% of them are fulfilling a mission that needs to be fulfilled. The problem is they're not able to get their message out, or they're having their boards and such are not managing the money that they do have correctly to allow them to fulfill their missions at hand. Another thing what does all this mean is there's not enough research done up to this point for us to truly pinpoint why these nonprofits are facing these types of dilemmas. Also, why is there such a growth in nonprofits when they're not able to make any money to fulfill their missions? Which also poses the very last question, which is, are there too many nonprofit organizations? Or are we just not managing and regulating the way we need to help those who are fulfilling their missions and to jumpstart the right ones to fulfill those missions as well? Thank you.